Our heritage on the African continent has taught us one thing. If we want to build fast, we can build alone. If we want to build stronger buildings that stand the test of time, we must build with those who call Africa home. Building beyond the needs of our current environment to unlock the potential that gives PPC its unrelenting optimism. We remain an integral part of the growth ambition across Africa's construction and built environment, as well as fostering an innovative culture to strengthen the category into the future. PPC is invested in building a stronger Africa. We know what it means to empower a community to experience a better quality of life. We have seen the African sky shine brighter every time a new structure has touched the ground. We have witnessed the growth of families and communities through the development and empowerment of entrepreneurs. We are scientifically informed, 100% local production. We are unrelenting in the manufacturing of premium quality products. We embody the hopes and dreams of all who call Africa home. We understand what an Africa built by Africans means. It is a place where dreams to build a stronger continent can be realized without the threat of substandard workmanship and product in homes, schools, clinics, and the roads that connect us. This dream of building a stronger Africa is not only for the ones that answer the call to build, but for anyone who looks optimistically to the horizon and believes that we can create the future we desire. Join the journey today and realize what it means to build stronger with PPC. Building stronger communities, building stronger businesses, building stronger schools, building stronger roads. PPC, building a stronger Africa.
Thank you once again for joining me. Really a great panel to kick us off for today, and also a very, very tough topic, decoupling economic growth from resource generation. And each of our speakers today have really applied themselves to this topic. And I want to start off just by giving them the space to talk about their perspectives and where they're coming from when it comes to this particular topic. And I'll start with you, Jacques. Welcome and thank you so much for joining us. Some of your thoughts that are key to this conversation. I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, Zanele. Let me quickly introduce Coca-Cola Beverages Africa. We are the Coca-Cola company's largest Coke bottler on the continent. We do about 40% of the volume of the Coca-Cola system on the continent. And we produce, sell, and distribute the brands that people love. And you know, we are doing increasingly more work to create a far stronger sustainability agenda. And our key focus is on building or making packaging part of the circular economy with a focus of 100% collection rate and increasing our recycling efforts. We have a World of Waste initiative, which is a clear strategy with commitments to recover every bottle or can we sell by 2030. And then obviously have a very far stronger focus on balanced water and improve the water security, specifically in stressed areas. And then reduce our carbon footprint, and then source more sustainably into the future.
Thank you so much, Jacques. And I think it's quite an interesting journey that you have, because Coke has been doing this for many, many years. I'd love to hear later on you talking about the production processes and the sourcing sustainably of some of the resources that you need in your production cycle. But let's come back to that and have a more detailed conversation as we move along. If I can actually move on to you, Roland, some of your thoughts from a PPC perspective.
Yeah, thank you, Zanele. You know, if you look at a company like PPC in existence for more than 100 years, you can see clearly that the concept of sustainability, you know, looking after the three axes of sustainability, the financial performance, environmental performance, and social performance, is ingrained in our DNA. You saw just on the video how proud we are to contribute to a better quality of life for people in Africa, building schools, building hospitals. But obviously, whilst we provide basic materials to make that all happen, we need to be very well aware that the building space is a very significant contributor to the CO2 problems that we have in the world. And not just from the product of cement that we produce, but also from the general use of a building. And it sometimes pains me when I drive through the country and I see new buildings going up that are not taking into account the latest technologies that are available for insulation, for energy efficiency, for water recycling, and all these elements. So what we would strive for is an economic growth, not just in financial terms, but also in well-being of our humanity at a lesser cost of the of the environment that we impact with the works we're doing.
Thank you. We really have a lot to discuss as well. I think PPC has had many challenges and have more into the future to create a sustainable organization. But great points you also brought up there that really go for every single organization in the continent is as we are building this continent, are we doing that mindfully? So again, something to touch on later on. But over to you, Kgauta. I think you probably are somebody that really needs to give us insight into the role of government when it comes to looking at the environment and looking at economic growth and how we actually balance the two as we go forward. Some opening remarks from you.
Thank you very much. I'm Kgauta Mokoena from the Department of Environment, Forestry and Fisheries. I'm the Chief Director responsible for Chemicals and Waste Policy Monitoring Evaluation. In the department, as you would know, from policy point of view, we have a range of policies and legislative instruments that are there to try and ensure that environment, more especially waste management, is better managed. And at the same time, we are implementing the concept of sustainable development. But key to it is the issue of circular economy, for which Cabinet has recently approved the National Waste Management Strategy 2020, which has one of the actions in the implementation plan, the development of the Circular Economy Action Plan, which is a key document that will take us forward in terms of adapting, implementing circular economy, and at the same time recognizing the benefits that the rest of the world is already getting through implementing circular economy. So we are encouraging the change in mindset, in thinking, from moving away from linear economy to a much more circular, with keeping resources and material as long as possible in the loop, to ensure that we have very limited and minor going to the landfill side, because we can reuse, we can recycle, we can recover, we can reclaim in the value chain. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kgauta. Look forward to balancing out what organizations are trying to do and the speed and insightfulness that government is actually ensuring that the right policies and regulations are in place to support this world that we want to create. But I want to go straight to Jacques again. Jacques, I think Coca-Cola, being a global brand, really running across the continent and having been around for so many years, to what degree do you believe that you are leading and implementing real sustainable solutions as part of your growth strategy across the continent? A simple enough question. I won't elaborate too much on it. So speak to me a little bit about the innovation and the leadership that you're providing across the continent to balance and to decouple economic growth and resource generation.
Thank you, Sanelli. Look, yeah, it's quite a big question, and with lots of potential answers to it. From our internal process perspective, we use a lot of innovation around technology to reimagine our packaging, because as you can imagine, the packaging carries the product. And I guess in today's world with COVID, we'll find probably more increasing the packaging, because every food and beverage is packaged in that. And our whole aim is to make the packaging better so that it doesn't harm the planet and the business. But so working together to better the bottles or the packaging, because the packaging shouldn't do any harm to the environment. And then try and increase our level of recycling of the packages specifically. So if I get granular, and my apologies for that, but it's just to demonstrate to you what we've done. We all know that when you do recycling, a color bottle is a difficult thing to recycle. So we've made all our bottles clear. And recently you would have seen our Sprite bottles change from a green bottle to a clear bottle. which helps the process of recycling specifically. We also recently introduced a 2-liter PET bottle, which is returnable. In essence, then you buy the bottle and you pay a deposit on the bottle, and you can consume the product, and then you bring it back and you get a deposit value back on it. So effectively, it's also more affordable, but what it does, it takes the bottle out of the environment and it becomes a bottle that you can use continuously for a period of time. The third piece we're doing is really to focus on reducing the weight of our PET bottles. So reduce the resin that goes into the PET bottles. And we're quite proud of the last period. We've actually reduced the packaging material, packaging resin, by about 25%. And so once again, I can call out in 2019, we've launched our 500 ml Bon Aqua flavored bottle, which has completely been made out of recycled PET. And over the years, we consistently reduced the resin content in our bottles. 500 in our 2-liter bottles, you'll find about a 10% recycled PET in it. And our target is very aggressive to get to about a 50% by 2030. But in essence, to drive and develop and use innovation and resources so that all our packaging we use are recyclable, because that's the secret. And then bring it back into that circular so that when it's become completely recyclable, then it becomes part of that whole cycle to complete that.
That's fantastic to hear. And I think we do have to be quite big in our thinking in terms of how much we can actually change the way in which we do, packaging that is more environmentally friendly. A quick question to follow up on that. At what cost? Are you finding that the costs are definitely worth investing in? Are you able as a business to manage and to continue on your growth strategy while investing heavily on trying to create a sustainable products for your consumers? I'll come back to you a little bit later, Jacques. My question is around the cost and the investment required to create a sustainable environment. I can hear that you're buffering a little bit. But maybe let me move through to the next conversation. Roland, I think PPC, having been around for probably 150 years, if I'm not mistaken, they too, you also have really always been mindful of the environment and the societies within which you operate. What do you believe are some of the challenges you have and the opportunities that you've stepped up to when it comes to the production of your materials?
Yeah, as you rightly said, companies that are around for such a long time, they must have had the word sustainability in their DNA throughout. And especially if you look at a company as PPC, when we operate a facility, let me just start with the beginning. Normally, our plants are in remote locations, so it has a significant impact on the social fabric of the location. It's a mining operation where we start. So obviously, responsible mining and making sure that we rehabilitate areas that we use for mining has been going on for years. And the technologies and the practices and the sharing of information to make sure that we rehabilitate with natural species, natural plants, has been key throughout the history of PPC. Now, what has changed is, if you go further into the production process, is that the amount of effort that in the last years have been put on reducing greenhouse gases has tripled, if not quadrupled or even more. And for us, that really comes down to two main drivers. It is the replacement of coal in our production process, and it is the reduction of electricity and or the sourcing of more sustainable electricity. So we are working, for example, on various solar projects to replace electricity that we take out of coal-generated power plants. And we are looking, together with actually the Department of Kgauta, at ways how we can develop and stimulate policies that waste doesn't go to landfills, but that it, for example, is being used in our cement plants to replace coal as our main fuel.
So you're quite tied to the battle that Eskom also faces. And really, we're speaking about redundancy in the next couple of years. What is going to be replacing the need for coal and electricity? And again, maybe the same question to you is, what is it taking to be able to invest in these new technologies? Do you find that it's going to be economically viable for you as a business? How does it affect your bottom line to be having to invest so much in the innovation that's going to allow you to be sustainable going forward?
Well, it's always a double-edged sword. That on the one hand, some of these techniques that are already widely used in many parts of the world actually are a clear win-win. So if we can use waste streams and reduce our dependency on coal, there is a clear financial win-win behind that as well. The moment we start to reduce CO2, and we actually are using in our internal calculations already a cost value to the CO2, as we do believe that will be more and more mainstream across the continent. You need to combine the financial incentives with the sustainable and environmental incentives, and that is what we see happening more and more across the world. Now, will a product like cement become obsolete? Probably at some stage in the cycle. However, today, if you just look at the sheer volume of concrete that we use throughout the world, I would just like to remind the audience that concrete is the second most used material in the world. So it will not disappear overnight. At the same time, the message that we use within our company is that it is important that we shouldn't use that argument to believe that things will not change. And we would like to be on the forefront of that change. So we're looking very closely at what the larger institutions are doing in terms of research and innovation, and try to apply that as quickly as possible in our operations in different places on the continent.
And what's great about that perspective, whilst you have been around for 150 years, we don't know how quickly innovation is coming in place. So things could really change perhaps in the next 10 years, 20 years. We seem not to be able to predict just how quickly technology and innovation, changes the landscape. So thinking about it now really creates the foundation for the future. And I think that's excellent. I want to move to a question that really balances out the innovation that we see globally when it comes to saving energy, using different forms of energy. And I'm not sure in South Africa, are we lagging or are we leading or are we running at the right pace? And this question can go through to the next member of our panel, Kgauta. Let me know, what are your thoughts around government's role? Is it, in terms of really creating the right types of policies and regulations that can enforce, the right type of sustainable change for the continent fast enough? And I know you're speaking from a South African perspective, but your thoughts would be valuable.
Thank you very much, Sanele. A very important point to mention in terms of policy, environment, as well as enabling these good initiatives to take place. There are a number of interventions that are there that the government is doing. We already heard from the interventions made earlier on in terms of the use of PET bottle in recycling, and also developing input material for manufacturing other products, as opposed to depending on natural virgin material. So those kind of shifts and practices is not only local or South African practices, but best practices that we share experiences with other colleagues in the continent through the African Circular Economy Alliance, where different countries who are members of the African Ministers Conference on Environment, AMCEN, are discussing how, as African countries, we can work together in implementing the circular economy related decisions of AMCEN, and at the same time at country level, what are the initiatives and examples that are there that are world class in terms of showcasing how we can make use of alternative fuel resources as opposed to one form of source. But at the same time, it talks to how do we innovate as a country, the role of research, development and innovation becoming key to say what best practices we can come up with, as well as how to implement those, and finding alternative materials where there might be savings and opportunities through circular economy, and also ensuring that those materials that are there, we're able to keep them as long as possible in the loop, in the circular or spherical manner, as opposed to take, make, and dispose of material, because that's resource loss. We believe in waste as a resource. So if we take, make, and dispose, we're losing material which could otherwise be input into a particular production process. So there are a number of examples that colleagues in the panel can share and are already participating in, which we recognize as best practice. So hence, they're working together. It's not only government who sets these policies, but we're working together with all stakeholders from industry, academia, and civil society to make sure that we develop instruments that can work for our developing country context and environment, and ensuring that all the factors and the pillars of sustainable development are taken into account. Thank you.
Mr. Mokoena, I think you probably find yourself under a lot of pressure, especially post-COVID. We are seeing a complete reset of the economy, and I'm sure we're seeing resets of the economy across the globe. When it comes to the pressure to deliver on policies, especially around waste and chemicals, are we 90% there? Where are we in terms of finalizing what those policies look like? But most importantly, I think the second question is, are we improving on implementation? Because what we've seen with COVID is that it's really put a lot of industries to really readjust their operating models really, really quickly. Are we seeing the government responding fast enough when it comes to those policies and regulations? And how are we doing in terms of implementation? And what are some of the challenges that probably are still with us, that plague us? Great ideas, things in paper, lots of conversation. What is happening with implementation?
Yes, we are doing well in as far as implementing the existing policies that are there, and where there is need for amendments and revisions, there are discussions that takes place as part of the normal policy development process, where as a sector, we discuss those areas that needs revisions and come up with alternative ways of recrafting that aspect that needs to be revised in a particular piece of regulation or legislation. So hence, these discussions and the revisions are taking place to ensure that we have an enabling environment for industry to do business, and also for business to take place in environment and in a manner that is sustainable without being detrimental to the environment, and also compromising the ability of future generations to take decisions in how they would want to manage the environment. So as examples, we are currently working on the plastic bags amendment regulations, which is a consultative process to ensure that there is introduction of recycled content in the plastic carrier bags as well as flat carrier bags, as this has been introduced previously, but in aligning with the UNEP IRP report on the Resource Outlook 2019, we trying to ensure that we are also following that global practice, which is in terms of moving towards material that is recyclable, while at the same time recognizing the need for innovation, as well as the need for changes in terms of infrastructure that is there to adapt to those new requirements. Recently introduced again is regulations for extended producer responsibility, which is also other regulatory instruments for implementing circular economy. And you can see there that we are really concluding policies and regulations that relates to waste management. Linked to COVID-19 is a bit of a challenge and a global pandemic, as we'll all know, but we're looking at it in both ways. While it is a challenge, is how do we then recover from that challenge or respond to it as a pandemic and also as a country. The responses will vary from one case to another through relief. For instance, in cases of lockdown where, for instance, participants such as the informal sector waste pickers might not be able to make a living, so relief in that way might work well and come in handy, while on the other side, potential and opportunities for economic development through reuse of materials such as, of course, from textile in manufacturing face masks, because we need those and we never had such a demand, which is good for business and which is something we've been concerned about in terms of market for materials that are manufactured in environmentally friendly way or green goods. So hence, it's both challenge as well as opportunities for us to say, how do we innovate in order to recover well, and also for post-COVID-19 economic recovery generally, and for us as a sector to contribute through circular economy in the post-COVID-19 economic recovery of the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mokoena. Jacques, I hope you're with me. I see that you are. Speak to me a little bit about the innovation that's required when it comes to the sourcing of materials, especially as you move across the continent. I'm hoping that some of what we've learned from COVID is the ability to find some of the things that we need closer to home and to create opportunities within communities from a social aspect. And that's a big part of the ESG challenge. How is Coke adapting itself to finding products localized and creating opportunities that empower the communities around them?
Yeah, it's and I think it's partnership. So we are using our network and our belief to make a difference, and this is something we cannot do alone. And I think it's really driven by partnerships. We're working with our peer companies, suppliers, partners, NGOs, and local governments to create solutions in areas where the need is the greatest and how we can make a significant impact. And to partner with governments through the implementation of the extended producer responsibility, as the Minister explained, is one of the crucial pieces. And let me give you an example of what we're doing currently. In 2004, the industry created a framework and a facility and actually a company called PETCO. And that was completely industry-led, which is an extended producer responsibility initiative for the collection and recycling of PET bottles. And that has since been established in markets outside of South Africa as well, in Kenya, Ethiopia, and we're launching soon in Tanzania. And what we're doing is that everybody in the whole value chain is involved. So from raw materials to converters, the brand owners, retailers, consumers, recyclers are playing a crucial part in this. So with PETCO, we're then fulfilling the PET industry's role of extended producer responsibility. And in essence, it's a self-introduced tax, if I can call it that, because we are paying a levy to a central, to PETCO effectively, to be able to create the ability for people to go and collect the wastage and add value to that. So that levy has actually helped to fund us from a collection perspective. And we're taking this quite seriously. Obviously, with COVID, we with the lockdown, we took a bit of a setback, but we are refocusing our business activities to help the people and bring people into the net. And I think from an African broader context, this is an incredible good opportunity for us to use the circular economy to create employment, to provide education, and to effectively take full responsibility from design and inception of the product till it gets collected and recycled and basically comes back in that whole circular piece. And PETCO, we believe, is an incredible strong live, active, and successful model in the South African context, which we're rolling out in the rest of our markets, that we can use on. But Saneli, I think one of the things that we as business need to think about more broader is how do we support each other far broader in this initiative? Because we are so focused on sectors or industries instead of becoming business in totality, and government can create enabling regulation that all businesses work together so that we can keep the environment clean and support each other, because the ultimate objective is to take the plastic or the wastage out of the environment. And I think businesses together can do far more and achieve far more and accelerate a lot of the speed that we're all talking about, because it's never going to be enough. As we move into the future, the wastage will get more because food and beverages just gets packed in a wastage product. So I think it's crucial for government to provide the right policies, the right standards by definition, so that all the material we use are recyclable. We need to create an infrastructure so that it's easy for consumers and the final user of the product to be able to get the product at the source so that we can easily collect it and then get the recycling piece going again. So for us, it's really about partnerships, collaboration, and then using innovation to try and reduce the plastic content in the packaging we are using.
I don't think there's an MBA that can help you with some of the challenges that you have to balance, and when you took on these roles and you CEOs of these organizations, I'm sure you had no idea just how many, balls you have to balance. And I think one of the most important ones is ensuring the performance of your business. So whilst you're looking at all these great initiatives that you want to drive, be they social, environmental, and resource linked, at the end of the day, your shareholders want to see profits. And I'd like to ask the question to Roland, who's applied himself a little bit to the challenge of how do we still ensure we're driving performance whilst we're balancing the number of opportunities and challenges that we see around us?
Yeah, Zanella, I think that is, a great question. How do you, on the one hand, satisfy the providers of capital, be it a shareholder or a bank, with a decent return, and on the other hand, develop society? And what we see happening at the moment is that the society starts to create more awareness that also investors are actually now making their choices differently than they made 5 or 10 years ago. And that is going very rapidly. So if you are today looking for money to open up a coal mine, just to give an example, you will have a hard time for the simple fact that people are considering these type of businesses as uninvestable, so to speak. So that actually pleases a company like PPC because of the work that we're doing. And I think it was Jacques that also mentioned it, that ultimately, these incentives need to be balanced. I always say that sustainability is like a three-legged chair. It has your financial leg, your environmental leg, and your social leg. And if one is larger than the other, it is out of balance and you will fall. And that is something that we have been playing with for 100 years, and we look forward to play with it for another 100 years. I also like to pick up on what both Kgauta and Jacques said about the partnerships, because I also believe that this is a collaborative environment in which we need to work. And too often, you do hear people, and I'm probably guilty of it myself from time to time, is that you like to talk about, but why are you not doing your part? The legislation is not good, the implementation is not good, it's a pain in the neck. Instead of sometimes also stepping back and understanding that, we are all coming from a different angle, but we have a joint goal in making this country a better place for our children and the future generations. And sometimes you just need to step back a little bit and just take count of the good things that are happening. I think Jacques made a wonderful comment on the initiative that the industry started already in 2004. And if I look at some of the initiatives that are going on around our plants, where we have entrepreneurs who've started to provide us with the overalls for our workers, so it's locally produced, it's generating employment, all these initiatives help, right? And on the bigger scale, policy-wise, it is also good that I see here in South Africa a good working together between government and the private sector. Sometimes, we have tough discussions, but don't forget that South Africa, I'm a foreigner, so I maybe look at it sometimes through a slightly different lens. But South Africa has a number of regulations that are absolutely world-class. You have world-class governance systems in place. Are they always applied? There's room for improvement. Probably there is. But let's not, look at the negatives. Let's look at what is in place. I have been asked to contribute to thinking that is going on within the King 4 committee about disclosures around climate change impact on companies. And I think that is also important that we show stakeholders into our company consistently how we see that climate change is impacting our business, what risks and what opportunities we are seeing. I'm actively involved in an initiative which is called Just Transition, where a number of large companies have come together to apply their mind as to where is this going and how can we adjust. And it sounds easy that we say, we should move away from coal-based generation of electricity. Wonderful. But don't forget the livelihood that is associated with the coal mining in South Africa. So we do need to apply our minds very carefully and not make too quick conclusions. But the country is blessed with an abundance of resources. And I think, we are just there jointly to make sure that we make wise use out of them. I see a very bright future if we can put our hands together and keep moving. And the key word, as you said, Zanella, is implementation. Get the things on the ground. Small things and bigger things.
You've also said something very important. We've known this for forever, that Africa is blessed with a lot of resources. But somehow we have not seen those resources enriching the continent or enriching South African resources enriching South Africa. I'm happy for either one of you to take this, just give me a signal, because surely going forward with this reset and this opportunity that we have, do we start to see what are the key markers that are giving us comfort that the resources that Africa has will be benefiting Africa first, the capability to mine those resources and the capability to transform those resources into usable elements that'll be happening within the continent. Is that something that we desire to see happening, or is that something that we're not keeping an eye on? And I'd love to hear your perspective. And maybe we can start off with you, Mr. Mokoena, and then we'll roll up and see what perspectives the two panelist members have as well. So over to you, Kgauta.
Thanks, Zanella. You're quite correct in terms of the opportunities that we're missing where we're not beneficiating the resources that we are extracting locally. So hence we have interventions that are trying to ensure that we promote local beneficiation first with an intention of contributing to the economy, at the same time enabling job creation to take place locally, domestically, and at the same time for value add, so that those products that are manufactured locally are able to supply the local or domestic market, and at the same time then they can trade globally through export, but of already processed and beneficiated material. So hence, in the waste management space, what we have done, we've introduced the regulations around the import and export of waste, largely to ensure that there is proper governance and controls around the movement of waste from one country to another, and at the same time ensuring that we follow and apply the international practices in terms of that movement, transboundary movement, lastly when it comes to hazardous waste. Because we see the need for local beneficiation, the opportunities that are there, the benefits that are there from local value adding processes. You see enterprises that are being established through making use of the waste material that would otherwise be taken to other parts of the world for beneficiation. You probably heard recently about China making restrictions or stopping the import of waste into that part of the country. So is initiatives such as those that say there is value in dealing with the material locally and also ensuring that we are able to participate globally at a bit much more fairer level, as opposed to being actively participating at a loss because of making resources available and not leveraging as much benefit as we're going to had we beneficiated them locally. So hence we have what we call recycling enterprise support program, largely to encourage more and more enterprises participating in the value add and waste beneficiation, in ensuring that we are able to create local enterprises that are managing and beneficiating waste locally to produce materials that can then be exported. Thank you.
Thank you, Kgauta. Roland, your thoughts?
You're touching on a very passionate topic for me, Zanella. And I see the same in the continent as in another country where I worked, which was also blessed with resources. And somebody said to me about that country, we are a rich country that chooses to be poor. And sometimes you can apply that same principle, and it makes me tick, because if you hear people talking about, we need to create employment, we have all these local resources. And at the same time, when I entered into this country about a year ago, we had a steel factory closing down, we had electricity problems, and we have a cement industry that is being threatened by imports coming out of Asia. And you ask yourself the question, why can we not put our mouth where the words sometimes need to be? If we say local manufacturing, we want local manufacturing. And do I say that because I'm running a cement company in South Africa? And do I have a financial interest if we can stop the imports? Absolutely. I'll make no mistake about that. But it doesn't dismiss me from running a competitive business. But you cannot expose the country with companies that are creating employment, that are applying world-class environmental legislation, that are developing local communities, and then throw at them, well, we're a member of the World Trade Organization, so we cannot do anything about the cheap imports that are coming in. And I'm going like, this doesn't match. It doesn't match. If you see the biggest economies in the world, they are looking after their own interests. And I would urge the South Africans to do exactly the same. Other countries in Africa are doing it as well. Let's also not forget that South Africa is a very young democracy. So we also have to work through still establishing how we will work together in the challenges that we face. So let's take this opportunity. Let's not look back at what differs between the people that we are having around the table here, but what's uniting us. And what's uniting us is that we have a next generation that will live in a better world than what we're living in today. And we have to contribute to that. That is, why I think I've been given the blessing to run a company like PPC. Is it challenging from time to time, as you said, Zanella? Yes. But this is actually what is the exciting part of it, that you are, can do a little contribution that can go a long way if we all go in that direction.
Thank you very much. I forgot to say thank you so much to Mr. Mokoena as well. I think he really had some insightful points to share with us. And to come back to what you were saying, Roland, I think we definitely need something to unite us for a better tomorrow as a continent. And those messages definitely need to come from our leadership, and they need to be reflected in the policies and regulations that are agreed to. I loved your point as well around looking at what are the best interests of South Africa, or what are the best interests of the African continent, and to really not be ashamed to actually follow that and make sure that we're empowering our own. I think over and above that as well, we need to internally reset our own minds and not have a mentality of scarcity, but one of abundance, because that's what's needed to create an inclusive economy, is to be comfortable with the fact that everybody can actually participate, and where we can open up opportunities, we should do so abundantly, so, and not necessarily protect or hold back opportunities, for ourselves. So really a lot of great points, and thank you so much, Roland. Moving through to Jacques. Jacques, what are some of your thoughts on this conversation?
Thank you. I mean, that's music to our ears, because we really believe in local sourcing and local development. So for us, it's all about, we need to source as much as we can locally from the local country, and then help establishing the infrastructure and the supplier. So we we partner with a lot of up and young supply networks across Africa, where we try and source all our raw materials locally. And then through that, we try and create the clarity in the design so that it complies with the sustainability agenda that we so desperately do focus on. So in that piece, I think it creates incredible jobs for the people of Africa. And it helps also for us to spread it and bring it into our value chain. So it's important for us to be able to have a very extended, localized value chain and use the people from the continent to do that. And you asked earlier a bit around how do you justify the incremental cost potentially linking to the sustainability piece. And I think the climate crisis today is at critical levels. And in environmental sustainability is more than just another corporate social responsibility investment. It's all about an integrated part of doing business. And at Coca-Cola, we are driving that passionately, and we made it part of our mission statement, is that to do the things that matter and change the place for a better future for all our people on the continent. And through that, it's all of the people matters, the planet matters, and doing business the right way by following the values we are anchoring ourselves in as an organization. And profitability is important, but not at all costs. And through that, we're starting to create an environment where we use creativity in our value chain to become more efficient, but more effective as well, so that we can support local as much as possible through our whole value chain process. And our shareholders are buying into that, and our shareholders actually prefer that. And I think post-COVID, the ESG agenda is far more important than what it was before COVID. And as business and government, through partnerships, we have to step change the way we look at that agenda specifically to transform our environment for the better.
Who would have thought? I mean, I don't think I am. I'm not as old as my grey hair gives away, but who would have thought that this would be the challenge we're facing 10, 15 years ago? So I'm super excited that we actually have these challenges and the fact that we are responding to them. And then we have this youth and SME sector that is just bustling at the moment. And I'm wondering if you've seen some innovation coming from the market to you as big business that you have found inspiring and really comforting, because with innovation, we see the ability to create economic growth and to create sustainability. Any examples or opportunities to share? And by the way, everybody who's listening to this webinar, thank you so much. A lot of people are on Twitter with their comments. If you have any questions, put those on Twitter as well. They'll hopefully be sent through to me. Now, if I have time, I'll pull one or two across. I've already, taken some of yours. So thank you so much. So, keep talking to us on Twitter. So back to the question is, have you seen the innovation, the youth and just small enterprises coming up with innovative ideas to fuel your own thinking within your organizations?
So Nelly, yeah, let me go. It's incredible because, the youth is very connected to the environment and the sustainability agenda. And we had, out of one of our markets in Africa, a youngster out of Uganda that sat down and said he can use plastic that we collect and we cut it into smaller pieces to build bricks. And we started helping him through that process. And we started helping him through that to try and create pallets out of the plastic. And it wasn't strong enough, so we're rethinking it. But what for us was great is that we had people coming forward and saying, look, I can help you with this. We can make this bricks work. And let me tell you, I picked up the brick and I threw it down. It was strong. It serves the purpose that we're trying to do as well. And basically through that, we're taking waste out of the environment. And that's the youth and the people from the local countries coming with ideas and creativity. That's amazing for this continent. And if we can get to harness that, imagine what we can be in 5 and 10 years' time.
Africa really solving its own challenges. We definitely find our own opportunities and can solve our own challenges. And that's an example I actually would have loved for you to mention. So I'm glad that you did. I've seen that work taking place, and I hope it's something that really takes off. I think the Coke bottle and on all your other bottles really are going to live forever. So I hope they live forever with good purpose. Over to you, What are some of your thoughts, Roland, on the question of innovation, especially when it comes to SMEs and entrepreneurs and young people in the country?
Yeah, I think it's a great topic, Zanele, that you raise, and let's be reminded that I think it was last week that we celebrated the Week of Entrepreneurs, and people sometimes look at large companies like Coca-cola, or maybe a little bit less large, PPC, but we are not the solution to all the issues that we're facing. A strong economy, if you look at, take a country, Switzerland or Germany, it is not coming from the main companies, the Siemens, etc. It is coming from the SME in these countries. They drive innovation. They come up with the new ideas. And what we need to do as a larger company is to throw our weight behind some of these ideas, to pick up some of these ideas. We recently invested in a company. It's also going into a brick direction, similar to Jacques, made out of waste materials with a much less cement content, where naturally you can say that's not in your interest. You will sell less products if that becomes successful. But we see this as solutions that will come. And that is what coming back to, do you want to be part of this, or do you want to look at the sideline and just be run over by the train at Sunday? We will be part of this. There was recently an article that I picked up of two South African students that won a prize at Wits University for new material technology, which we immediately forwarded in our organization and said, hey, we need to connect. There are many bright spots out there. But sometimes you need to, see them through the countryside. It doesn't come from Jacques. It doesn't come from Kgauta. It doesn't come from me. It comes from the thousands of people that we have working on our organization. I'll have the pleasure tomorrow to go and visit one of our operations, visit a customer, and that is a customer that, is working with us in his small and medium enterprise. But these are the people that are ultimately driving the economy. And this is where the ideas are coming from. And I'm very passionate. To give you another example, we recently started a further cooperation in our plant in Rwanda, where we've now set the initiative that we say, listen, we don't just want to have zero waste in our plant, but in the community that is associated to the plant, we will implement a zero waste strategy. And we'll collect the waste and we will use it in our process. And that, togetherness, I think, is what will make us successful going forward.
And what will definitely make small businesses successful is in the partnerships with your PPCs, with your Coke. There are no other institutions, whether it be for funding or for anything else, that will actually be the power behind SMEs as much as you are. So I'm very grateful that you have that mindset, mainly because, small businesses surrounding the larger enterprises get much broader support as well as direct business. And I think that's really key to resetting the economy. On some of our final closing notes from you, and I want to go through to you, Mr. Mokoena, first. What are some of your key thoughts as we close off this conversation? And again, thank you for your participation. It's been an absolutely incredible input. Some of your key thoughts as we close off?
Thank you very much, Zanele. I would like to request my fellow panelists to say maybe this issue of enterprise support and development is an area we might want to identify for further partnership and collaboration. To cite two examples of the beneficiaries we have in our recycling enterprise support program. One is recycling waste by making it's a women-owned and youth manufacturing school bags, where during the day they have a solar charging facility, which at night can be used for lighting in a house in informal settlement, which helps in a number of ways and has a potential as well to benefit the community. The other example is of one waste picker who is supported and is now able to establish an enterprise, is an SMME and doing very well, employing more than 10 people, which changed the livelihood and the situation of an individual and a young person from the condition and the environment he was before when he was a waste picker and now when he's an entrepreneur. So more areas and opportunities for collaboration and partnership. Industrial symbiosis program, which we have where waste from one company can be used as an input material for another company next door through industrial symbiosis program, which we're also encouraging as one of the ways of implementing circular economy, and at the same time ensuring that we use waste as a resource and reduce negative environmental impact while we create jobs and also contribute to the growing of our economy. Most importantly, so after the COVID, during COVID and post-COVID-19, and for contributing to the resilience of our economy. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us today. It's definitely a great time, even for our delegates who are listening, to engage and talk about some of the solutions and innovations that they are busy with. You never know. You must never stop talking about what you do, because somebody's waiting out there for that brilliant idea and concept. So stay with us over the next 2 days. Lots of opportunities to do that. Roland, closing remarks on your side. Again, thank you for your participation. It's been absolutely incredible.
No, thank you very much for having organized this, Sanella. I think the conversation has been very rich, and it has given me a lot of energy to immediately move forward with some of the ideas that we spoke about. Ultimately, if we can, through local manufacturing, mindful application of concepts that already exist, and an open mind to innovation going forward, we will make South Africa the rich country that it deserves to be.
And thank you for being passionate about the country as well. It's really, it always helps to have another pair of eyes and, really look at us and know that the continent still is really a place of tremendous opportunity. So thank you for joining us today. Look forward to engaging again in future. All right, final words from you. I hope that you've had a great time as well, Jacques. What are some of your thoughts before we go away?
Thank you, Sanelli. I definitely had a great time. And sorry, I lost connectivity here. So that's, I guess, the challenges of today's life. But just closing, I think that macro level enabling a regulatory environment is so important for us to be able to develop and sustain the initiatives we have. We are passionate about building and facilitating partnerships, public and private. And we need the government or regulators to set very clear standards and drive policies, so that we can encourage a circular economy. But very much on a micro level, sustainability and recycling and waste collection starts at home. How much are we, each and one of us, do at home, in our own home environment and our families and our circle of friends? How do we set the example, and how do we educate our kids and our families? Because that's where it starts. And if we can accelerate that mentality and philosophy, and get business to accelerate the whole process around waste management and infrastructure, we can make a change. But if we don't start at home, it's going to be always haphazard, and it's going to be driven by regulators, which is going to drive a taxation through, which is not the most productive and robust way of fixing it. And I really believe that we need to help our kids and family and friends to understand the consequences and the impact that they can have on an environment that could be stunning if we all play that role. Thank you, Sanelli. It's been great to be with you.
Thank you so much. Really lots of food for thought for everybody. Great point, Roland. It does begin with us. It begins with us in our homes. And there's a lot of role players in a lot of things, but I can make a difference today. So I wish you all really lots of luck and strength, and I hope that you are inspired, as Roland has said, to really go out there and again think, rethink, and reignite the opportunities we have to drive an incredible economy.
PPC, building a stronger Africa.